of the 2026 JCoR SDG Lab. The Justice Coalition of Religious is pleased to offer this series as our contribution to the United Nations High-Level Political Forum on Sustainable Development, which is the annual global gathering that reviews progress toward achieving the Sustainable Development Goals, or the SDGs. While the High-Level Political Forum provides a platform for governments to report on their progress on the Sustainable Development Goals, it's also an important opportunity for us as civil society to bring forward the experiences, the wisdom, and the voices of our global community. As a coalition rooted in Catholic social teaching and the lived realities of the people that we serve, we are grateful to be a part of this dialogue, sharing our perspectives and highlighting the contributions of faith-based communities to advancing the Sustainable Development Goals. Throughout this week, each session of the JCoR SDG Lab has explored one of the SDGs that was reviewed during this year's high-level political forum. Today's focus is SDG 11, Sustainable Cities and Communities, making cities inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. And we are honored to be joined today by members of our global community of Catholic sisters, brothers, priests, and ministry partners. Together, they bring firsthand experience from communities striving to make cities and neighborhoods more inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable, as well as from places where significant challenges may remain. Their insights remind us that achieving SDG 11 is not only about urban planning or infrastructure, but also about upholding the dignity of every person, fostering social inclusion, and caring for our common home. Through their witness, we see how faith communities can help build places where all people can flourish. So our speakers today that we will be honored to listen and learn from are Father Anthony Prakash from Canada, Brother Joel Gaspar Beltrame from Brazil, and Sister Rosemary from Zimbabwe. So thank you to all of us for joining us for today's session. We are looking forward to a rich conversation and to learning from one another as we continue our shared commitment to the Sustainable Development Goals. Without further ado, we will begin with our first speaker, Father Anthony Prakash Lohal, with the Dominican Friars and the Institute of the Blessed Virgin Mary Loreto Generalate from Canada. So, Father Anthony, I hand it over to you.
Thank you so much, Teresa and Kathy. Welcome, everyone. And I'm grateful that you have given me an opportunity to share this presentation. We will look at homelessness in Canada through the lens of Sustainable Development Goal number 11, Sustainable Cities and Communities. And we take Toronto as a local case study. I will try to connect the national data, the local realities, a recent human rights court decision, and community advocacy that is led by the Mary Watts Center and the Crisis in Our City campaign. The goal of this presentation is to show you how we can translate SDG number 11 into concrete responsibilities with cities like Toronto, and how community action can push us closer to housing justice. As you know, the SDG number 11 is one of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, which was adopted by the UN in 2015. And the aim, as we were reminded, is to ensure that cities are inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. And one of the most important part of SDG number 11 is the target 11.1, which commits governments to ensure access for all to adequate, safe, and affordable housing and basic services by 2030. So Canada has translated this into national targets, including a commitment to cut chronic homelessness by at least half by 2028. So when we look at what is happening on Toronto streets, we can ask, how close are we to living up those commitments? I think the homelessness in Canada is a national crisis. And often Canada sees itself as a very prosperous and socially responsible country. And yet the reality of homelessness tells us a different story. On any given night in 2024, almost 60,000 people across Canada were experiencing homelessness. And that number has almost doubled in 6 years. You can see here that the number of people that are sleeping outside, unsheltered, including in encampments, has grown from 14 to 28%. And the UN also tracks the proportion of people living in slum-like conditions in Canada. That share rose from 0.2% to 1.1% of the urban population between 2000 and 2022. So these trends, my dear friends, show both a long-term housing crisis and an immediate emergency around basic shelter. So Toronto's reality, when we look specifically at Toronto, the crisis becomes highly visible. The city's shelter system has been reported as operating at or near full capacity for long periods, leaving many people with no realistic shelter options. What we know from our friends, that almost 200 people each day are left outside the shelters to fend for themselves. And in that context, encampments have grown in parks and other public places. And life in encampments is dangerous. You know, people face extreme weather, limited sanitation, healthy and safety risk. And yet for many, they feel safer or more autonomous there than in crowded or unsuitable shelters. So it's important to emphasize that encampments are a symptom of a deep failures in our housing and support system. They are not the root cause of the crisis. Why housing justice? Because housing is a human right. Housing is increasingly recognized not as a social good, but as a human right. And the international human rights instruments, which Canada has ratified, affirm the right to adequate housing. In 2019, Canada passed the National Housing Strategy Act, which explicitly recognizes housing as a fundamental human right. So these commitments connect to charter protections such as the right to life, liberty and security of the persons under Section 7, and equality rights under Section 15. So seeing homelessness through a human rights lens changes the conversation. It is no longer about charity alone, but about legal obligations and accountability. A landmark decision protecting encampment residents. The recent Ontario Superior Court decision has become a turning point in the legal treatment of encampments. In the Waterloo Region case, the court held the municipality would not remove residents from an encampment unless it could offer lawful and viable alternatives. Justice Gibbon found that the bylaw permitting forced evictions without adequate alternatives conflicted with the charter rights under Section 7 and under Section 15, which I just mentioned. And this ruling, I think, reinforces that the response must focus on housing solutions, not displacement. So what has been the response from the faith communities? See, alongside legal and policy efforts, local faith and community organizations have played a crucial role. And we at the Mary Watts Center, representing the Loreto Sisters, partnered with the Crisis in Our City group, and we had a campaign which has been kind of educating communities about homelessness, producing accessible policy briefs, and organizing events and advocacy. They frame housing not only as a policy issue, but as a moral and spiritual concern that goes to the heart of human dignity. So this work that is done in partnership with other interfaith communities and grassroots groups, showing how collaboration can amplify the call for justice. This kind of organizing helps build the public will needed to move governments from awareness to action. Everyone should have a safe place to sleep. So rallies and public demonstrations bring together people who have experienced homelessness, faith leaders, community workers, and concerned residents. The messages on some of the signs you will see: homes build community, homes not jails, everyone counts, and everyone should have a safe place to sleep, are simple messages but powerful. And they remind us that the issue is not abstract. It is about real people who are demanding a basic level of dignity and safety. And so public demonstrations like these, I believe, put pressure on decision makers. They keep the issue visible and help shift public opinion towards seeing housing as a shared responsibility. You see here, there was a Better Living Center, which was housing 300 people during winter. But this temporary shelter was closed because of the FIFA World Cup and before even winter was over. And this gave us a boost to our movement. Cities like Toronto have implemented emergency responses, such as warming centers and large respite sites, especially during winter. These spaces can be life-saving, preventing deaths from exposure when temperatures drop. However, shelters, I think, are not a solution to homelessness. They are temporary, they are often crowded, and can't offer the stability, privacy, and support that permanent housing provides. So long-term progress depends on building deeply affordable and supportive housing, investing in indigenous-led housing initiatives, and focusing on prevention and early intervention so fewer people become homeless in the first place. So I think without the emergency responses, we will simply keep cycling people through the crisis. So as I mentioned there, the FIFA World Cup took priority over people who lived on the streets. And this really boosted our campaign to talk about the priorities that the municipal corporation holds. Here are some of the photographs and pictures of the campaign. We had an interfaith walk as well as a rally, and we were able to petition to the mayor with 12,700 signatures, and we had some simple demands. I just show you a video clip that the media kind of took hold of us. It's a very short clip just explaining a little bit about the interfaith walk and rally that we had.
Is on the city's ongoing homeless crisis. They held an interfaith march and rally around Nathan Phillips Square late this morning. The group says it is great the world is here for the World Cup, but people are still sleeping on the streets. They feel the city needs to get people off the streets and into affordable housing.
I think anyone that lives in Toronto can see that we do have a crisis. There's a lot of people that are unhoused. And, we're putting a lot of effort into housing people who are coming here for FIFA, for World Cup. So I think we should start doing the same and putting in that same effort to help our neighbors.
When I had the meeting with the City of Toronto, they identified that there was pillars that were in place. And most of the time, I represent health equity. And most of the time, health equity isn't intertwined with all the organizations and the social enterprises that are growing in the community.
The event was organized by the group Crisis in Our City, who advocates for finding shelter for those experiencing homelessness. This is Toronto's breaking news. CP24 Canada is taking on Switzerland in their final match of the group stage at the FIFA World Cup.
So we have some recommendations, basically to have, as we were reminded that SDG 11 is looking for safe shelters during all seasons of the year, that we make housing affordable and build them on a war footing. And our third recommendation is to build tiny homes, cabins, so that people can move out of encampments. And really, in a nutshell, this is what really SDG 11 is asking of: inclusive and safe shelters and housing, that they be resilient, that we expand our warming shelters as well as respite centers during summer, and that they be sustainable, that the transitional cabbing housing facilities is only temporary. And so basically, it's a reminder that we move from local action to global goal. And so I think for me, Toronto is a showcase of how to bring SDG 11 into reality. We think globally with SDG 11, but act locally if we want to change. And so I just want to play the little bit of a clip that we had during the rally. This doesn't need much explanation. It's self-explanatory. So what happens next? I think to move from crisis to justice, a few key shifts are needed. And so I'd like to summarize what I have been sharing. First, I think the governments at all levels must try to treat housing as a human right, not something people earn if they are fortunate, but a baseline responsibility. Second, the encampments clearings cannot continue without guaranteed adequate alternatives. I think the Waterloo ruling makes this a legal as well as a moral issue. And thirdly, there must be sustained investment in deeply affordable and supportive housing, not just market rate supply. And fourthly, community campaigns like Crisis in Our City show us that ordinary people and interfaith communities can play a powerful role in pushing for change. And finally, we should remember that all of this is part of Canada's commitment to SDG 11, building cities that are inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable for everyone. and no one is left outside. Before I conclude, I just wanted to play a theme song which I think captured the sentiments of our rally. It's very simple, but I think that music uplifted our movement.
Justice makes a strong city. We need a strong city. We need a big city where no one is left outside. This justice makes a strong city. We need a strong city. We need a safe city. No one is left outside. I want to left outside. We gotta get back to the strong city. We need a strong city.
And so if you are interested more to hear about the policy statements and about the recommendations, you can look up at this document that was produced by one of our co-workers, Eugene Lapena, and it'll be on our website. Thank you for joining us and continue to support our work. And I'd like to end with this statue of the homeless Jesus, which is always a reminder of the people who live and sleep on the streets. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you so much, Father Prakash. And as you can see, we are already seeing support and appreciation for your words and your presentation with the emojis that our participants are sharing on the screen. I also invite participants to share your words of appreciation in the chat box as well. I really appreciate how you started us off today without even knowing it, connecting with a theme that has also been touched upon in our SDG lab on SDG 6 and on SDG 9 as well. This idea that sometimes we have a tendency to think of countries or categorize countries in the world as developed or developing. And then the following tendency is to think that the SDGs are really a focus only for the developing countries. But as our presentations this week have shown, and yours this morning, the SDGs are truly something to be taken up by each and every country around the globe. We all have work to do. And that was further emphasized, I think, in a really poignant way in the videos and clips that you were sharing from the demonstrations and the rallies, seeing how inclusive and diverse those spaces were, again, showing that ownership for the SDGs is a responsibility that all of us have in our different capacities. And to see advocacy exercised with such joy and the jubilant music was really, really moving as well. I also felt very encouraged, and I think it's encouraging to this community to hear about examples of governments such as Canada adopting legislation, like you mentioned, the National Housing Strategy Act, that recognizes housing as a fundamental human right. And yet within that, I think you underlined a very important piece of what we act out every day here as JCoR is this idea of no decision about us without us. As you elaborated upon in Canada, looking at how one of the initial reactions was to offer housing or shelters. But that might not always be the most comprehensive response if those who are unhoused are not comfortable staying in large or crowded spaces. They may be driven to alternatives. And so that's why it's so important that as we generate solutions to these concerns, that we do it together, that we do it in collaboration with those who are experiencing these issues firsthand. And so I really appreciate how you brought that to light. And you emphasized how the voices of all are incredibly important in formulating solutions. And it was also very encouraging to see examples of advocacy in action, not only recognizing the problem and trying to offer direct services to support, but taking the next step as communities of faith in trying to work for more systemic change, whether that was through walks or rallies or demonstrations or petitions. The diversity of advocacy actions that you outlined for us is really, really inspiring. So thank you so much for really enlightening us today with your experience.
Thank you.
Our next speaker today is Brother Joel Gaspar Beltrame with the Claretian Missionaries in Brazil. Brother Joel, are you with us?
He is not. I'm playing a video presentation from Brother Joel.
Oh, thank you. I will hand it over to you, Teresa. Appreciate the assistance.
Bom dia, boa tarde, boa noite.
Good morning to everyone, good afternoon, good evening.
Nesta reunião, eu me chamo Joel,
I'm
Joel,
Joel.
missionário claretiano, pertenço à província
I'm
claretiana do
part
Brasil.
of the
E
Claretian
gostaria de
province in
trazer
Brazil.
para vocês,
And I
compartilhar
want to
com
bring
vocês
to
nesta
you, I
manhã,
want to
nesta
share
reunião,
with you
algumas realidades quando
some
se trata do
realities
ODS número 11, sobre
when we
cidades e
deal with
comunidades sustentáveis, que tem como
SDG
objetivo
11.
tornar as
So
cidades e os
the
assentamentos
goal
humanos
is to make
espaços inclusivos,
cities
seguros,
spaces that are
resilientes e
inclusive,
sustentáveis.
safe, resilient,
Se tratando de
and
ODS tão
habitable.
importante, estarei
When we talk
falando
of such
aqui
an
em três
important
metas.
SDG,
Estarei
I will tell
trabalhando
you
nesta
about
apresentação três metas que são
three
muito
goals that
importantes
are
e que estão
extremely
diretamente
important
relacionadas com
and that
algumas
are directly
atividades
related
realizadas em nossa realidade
to what
brasileira.
is being
A
doing
meta
in our
11.1,
Brazilian reality.
na qual prisa
The,
garantir o acesso de
the first one
todos
is to
à
guarantee
habitação
access
segura,
of everyone
adequada
to
e a
safe
preço
housing, adequate
acessível e aos
housing with
serviços
accessible
básicos e
prices,
urbanizar as
and also the
favelas.
basic
A meta
services, and to
11.5, na
urbanize
qual
the
até
shanty towns.
2030 se busca reduzir
We
significativamente
also
o número de
want to
mortes e o
reduce
número de pessoas
significantly the
afetadas
number
por
of deaths and the
catástrofes
number of
e
people affected by
substancialmente diminuir as perdas
catastrophes,
econômicas
and
diretas causadas
decrease
por
the
elas
economical
em
losses
relação ao
caused
produto interno
by
bruto
this
global, incluindo os
in
desastres
relation to the
relacionados à
GDP,
água,
including
com foco em
disasters
proteger os
related to
pobres,
water,
as
with a
pessoas em
focus of
situação de
protecting the poor
vulnerabilidade.
and those that
E a
are in a
meta
vulnerable situation.
11.A, que
And
busca
the
apoiar
goal
relações econômicas,
11A,
sociais e
to
ambientais
support
positivas
economical
entre áreas urbanas,
relations, social and
periurbanas e
environment
rurais,
in urban
reforçando o
areas
planejamento nacional e regional
with
de desenvolvimento
national and
sustentável.
regional development
E
planning.
assim podemos pensar,
So,
com base
how
em
can
tudo
we
isso,
think about
o que
this?
está sendo realizado no
What
Brasil?
is being
O que a
done in
igreja
Brazil?
está fazendo no
What is
Brasil?
the
E
church
mais do
doing
que
in
isso,
Brazil?
o que a
And more
congregação
than that, what is
claretiana está
our
fazendo nesta
congregation
realidade
doing
geográfica?
in this
Não
geographic
poderia
reality?
deixar de falar do ODS
Well,
11 sem
I could
trazer este
not
assunto tão importante
forget
para a
to talk
realidade
about
da
this
Igreja
important
Católica no Brasil,
topic
que é a
to the
campanha da
reality of the Catholic
fraternidade.
Church, which is the
Todos os
campaign, it's
anos,
called the
a Conferência
Fraternity
Nacional
Campaign.
dos Bispos do Brasil
Every year we
elege
have
algum
this
tema
campaign.
social
It's a
para
UNESCO
ser
campaign. It
trabalhado, para
addresses a
ser
social topic.
meditado, estudado,
It's
reslado durante o período
a
da
campaign
quaresma, a campanha da
that
fraternidade
takes
que se
place.
desenvolve durante todo o ano. E o
It's a
tema
campaign
da
that takes place
campanha
during the
deste
whole year,
ano foi
and the
justamente,
theme
está
this year
sendo justamente
was
a
or is
fraternidade
being
e moradia,
fraternity,
usando como tema a
fraternity
passagem
and
bíblica de João, capítulo
homes.
1, versículo 14,
If you
na
see
qual
John chapter
ele
1
veio
verse
morar
14,
entre nós.
it says, He
Então,
came to
neste
reside
ano,
among
todas
us.
as
So
paróquias, todas as
this
igrejas,
year, all the
comunidades, todos os
parishes, the
cristãos
churches,
católicos e
all the
também a sociedade
Catholic
em geral
districts
são
and the
convidados
society
a
in general
refletir,
are
a
invited
rezar e
to
a estudar
reflect, to
este tema da
pray,
moradia,
and to
que se
study
trata de
this
um
topic
tópico da
of
dignidade
homes.
humana, de todo ser
And
humano,
this has to
que já se
do with
encontra na Bíblia,
dignity,
tanto no
human
Antigo
dignity.
quanto no Novo
In the
Testamento.
Bible, in
Quando
the
se
Old
pensa
Testament
no
and the
Antigo
New
Testamento,
Testament,
no
we
Gênesis,
refer to
podemos
this. In Genesis,
Deus criou um jardim para o homem morar.
God
A
created a
terra
garden
que
for
foi
men to
dada por
live.
Deus como um espaço a
Earth that was
ser
given by
habitado e
God as a
cultivado
space
para
to be
garantir a
inhabited and
atividade humana
cultivated
e a
to guarantee
convivência com
human
as outras
dignity and
criaturas.
the living
A
with other
moradia, a
creatures.
habitação, se faz presente desde os
The,
nômades com as
this
suas
happens
tendas
ever since
e
the
depois da
nomad
libertação do
with their
Egito com o
tents, and
sedentarismo,
after
na qual foram
Egypt
fixando
became
suas
free,
casas, suas
sedentarism,
habitações.
and
E
then
assim, a
homes, the
casa
concept of
passa a
home
possuir um conceito de lugar de
appeared.
proteção,
So
de
it's a
abrigo, de
place of
segurança e
protection,
de
of
solidariedade
safety,
entre
of
as pessoas. No
solidarity,
Novo
solidarity among
Testamento,
people.
com a
In
presença
the
de
New
Jesus
Testament,
Cristo,
with the
este
presence of
nasce
Jesus
entre
Christ,
aqueles que não possuem um
this
lugar.
is for
A
those
casa
people
como
that
lugar
have
na qual
no
são
place.
estabelecidos os vínculos
The home is
interpessoais
a
de
place where
fraternidade, amizade
interpersonal
e
links
comunhão.
are
Na
established,
época de
friendship
Jesus
and
Cristo,
communion.
a casa passou a possuir
In the
este
time of
conceito.
Jesus,
E mais do que
a
isso,
home
as
started
pessoas eram
with this
convidadas
concept,
a entrar nas
and
casas.
also people
Jesus
were
Cristo foi
invited to come
convidado a
into
entrar em
homes.
muitas casas, na
Christ
qual
was
foi
invited
aí,
to
em várias
come into
casas, onde
homes, and
ele
it was there
ensinava
in
e
several
curava.
homes
E a
where he
casa
taught
passa a
and he
possuir
cured,
esta
and the
fraternidade
home
hospitaleira,
becomes
passa
part
a
of
se
this
tornar a igreja
hospitality and
doméstica, a
fraternity.
cidade santa
It
do
becomes
Apocalipse. E
a
com isso pode ser
saintly
percebido que
town
Deus
of the
toma a
apocalypse.
iniciativa de fazer
It's a
morada
witness
no meio do povo.
that God
Habitação, a
wants people to
moradia,
have
a
a
casa, um
home.
conceito que se
It's
relaciona a
a
todos
concept that
os seres
has to do
humanos, na qual até
with
Deus
all
quis
human beings,
fazer morada junto do
where
seu povo.
even
E com
God
isso também podemos
wanted
perceber
to
qual é o
live with his
significado
people.
de moradia.
We can also
Habitação e moradia.
analyze the real
Habitação
significance
como
of
os
a
aspectos
home.
físicos da casa,
First of
as
all, the
paredes, os
physical
quartos,
aspects
o
of a
teto,
home, the
etc.,
walls,
que
the
pode ser
rooms, the
sazonal
ceiling.
ou a longo
It can be
prazo. E
seasonal
a
or it can be
moradia
long
como
term.
algo mais
And
amplo, que
so
contempla a habitação e
something
também outros
also that
elementos, como os
contemplates
aspectos
an
físicos,
a habitation with other
infraestruturas,
elements like
sanitarismo, as
physical
questões de
aspects,
valores e
infrastructure,
também os valores
values
relacionais dos
related to
indivíduos e
the
das
individuals
famílias.
or to
Ou
a
seja, o
family.
lugar aonde se estabelece
So he divides it in two
relações e
places, the physical
valores.
part and the
E
part
assim,
with values and
se tratando
relationships.
de algo
This is not,
importante e essencial para
this is
todos os
something
seres
important
humanos,
and
pode
essential
ser
for all
percebido que
human
não
beings.
é um problema
And
particular. E
there's
assim,
not a
quando
private
pensamos
problem,
na
it's a
Declaração Universal
problem
dos Direitos
of
Humanos
everyone.
de
Here we have the
1948,
Universal
esse
Declaration of
tema,
Human
esse
Rights in
tópico já se faz
1948.
presente. aonde
And
no artigo
this
25
topic is
fica
already
visível e
present
claro
in
para
Article
todos
25.
que todo ser humano tem
They declare
direito
that
a um
every
padrão de
human
vida
rights has the
capaz
right
de
of a
assegurar a
standard
si
of
e a
life
sua família
capable to
saúde,
assure
bem-estar,
himself and his
inclusive
family health,
alimentação,
well-being,
vestuário,
food,
habitação, cuidados
nutrition,
médicos,
clothes,
serviços sociais que
housing,
são
medical
indispensáveis e
care,
também direito
social
à
services, which
segurança,
are
em caso de
indispensable, and also the
desemprego,
right to
doença,
safety
invalidez,
in the case of
viuvez, etc.
unemployment, sickness,
Pensando em
if
nossa
you lose
realidade,
your spouse,
a
etc.
Constituição
Thinking
da
about
República Federativa
Brazilian
do Brasil,
reality,
já
the
nos primeiros
Republic
artigos, no
Constitution
artigo
of the
número
Federative
6,
Republic of Brazil,
afirma que
in
são
Article number
direitos
6,
sociais à
affirms that
educação,
these
à
are
saúde, à
social rights for
alimentação, o
education, health,
trabalho, a moradia, o
nutrition, work,
transporte, o lazer, a
home,
segurança, a previdência
transport,
social,
leisure,
etc.
safety,
E a
social
igreja
health,
não
etc.
fica para trás
And
também.
the
O Papa
church
João 23, em
also
sua encíclica,
talks about this.
afirma no
Pope
parágrafo
John
número 11
23, he
que, ao nos
affirms in
dispormos
paragraph
a
11,
tratar dos direitos
when
do
we
homem,
talk about the rights of
advertimos de
men,
início que o
we
ser humano tem
warn that the
direito
human
à
being has the right
existência,
to
à
exist,
integridade
to
física, aos
physical
recursos
integrity,
correspondentes a um
resources
digno padrão de
corresponding to
vida. Tais são especialmente o
dignity
alimento, o
in life,
vestuário, a
especially food,
moradia, o repouso,
clothes,
assistência
a
sanitária,
home,
ou seja, os
rest,
serviços
sanitary
sociais
assistance, so
indispensáveis. A
indispensable
moradia
social
se trata
services.
e se
The person
relaciona
also
com a
has the right to be
dignidade
helped
do
in
ser
case of
humano. E
sickness, if
também
they
a
become a
moradia,
widow,
quando
etc.
falamos de
And
moradia,
also, when we
estamos
talk
falando
about
de
a home,
família.
we talk
A
about
casa, a
family.
habitação,
It's
como
a
lugar
place
da
where you
confiabilidade, na
trust.
qual aqueles que não possuem
So,
uma
those who do
habitação,
not
se
have a
trata de
home,
um problema
it's a
social que
social
exige
problem, and it
soluções que
demands
envolvam
solutions that
toda a
involve
sociedade.
all
O governo
society.
público, as
So,
responsabilidades
whether it be
civis, as
the civil
sociais, e também a
responsibilities,
igreja
the social
se faz presente
responsibilities,
para resolver esse
and
problema social que
also
se faz
the need
presente
to
em nossa
solve this
realidade
problem, the
e que
social problem which
precisa
is
de uma
present in our
solução.
reality,
Então,
and we
algumas
need a
ideias, né, a
solution.
ser
So
pensadas para
here
fazer com
we
que
show you some
essa
ideas
realidade se torne
so
solucionável
that
e pensando
reality
também
is
enquanto
solved.
província
And
claretiana do
we,
Brasil.
as a
As várias
Claritin
frentes de
province
trabalho
in
da nossa
Brazil,
província aqui no
we
Brasil, uma
work in
delas o
several
Instituto
different
Claré,
fronts,
que tem como a causa
and
principal a redução das
the main
desigualdades.
cause
Dos vários
and
trabalhos
our cause is to
realizados,
reduce
só todos
inequality.
possuem uma missão
So
em comum,
we have a
que é
mission,
contribuir
vision,
para o
and values.
desenvolvimento
So the
humano
idea is to
integral
contribute
e
for
o
the human
protagonismo das pessoas
development,
junto às
the
periferias
protagonism
geográficas
of
e
people, of
existenciais,
geographic
visando a
peripheries,
construção de uma sociedade
and to
justa,
build a
inclusiva e
fair,
solidária. E
inclusive,
tem
and
como visão ser uma
society with
organização de
solidarity,
referência no
to be
cuidado com a
an
dignidade da
organization
vida,
of
com o
reference in the care
desenvolvimento
of
integral das
life's
pessoas
dignity,
e com o
with development of
fortalecimento da
people and with
cidadania, e
strengthening
que
of
possui como
citizenship.
valores a
And the values are
solidariedade, a
solidarity,
liberdade, a
freedom,
fé, a
faith,
justiça e o bem
justice,
comum.
and
Ou
the common
seja,
well-being,
está sendo tratado
meaning
sobre dignidade humana.
the main
Todo ser
thing is
humano
human
tem o
dignity,
direito de possuir uma habitação digna
the
e
right of
segura.
having
E
a
o Instituto Claré,
dignified
província
home and a
claretiana
safe
do
home.
Brasil, não fica para trás
So
quando o assunto
we
é fazer com que este direito seja
think that
acessível
this
a
right
todas
is
as
very
pessoas.
important and it should
Das
be
várias
accessible to
frentes de
everyone.
trabalho realizadas,
This
vários
is the work that
ODSs
we
acabam
carry
sendo
out,
incluídos na
and
grande gama de
a
trabalhos,
lot of things are
inclusive o
included in
ODS
this
número
work.
11. Nesse conjunto de
In this
redução das
set
desigualdades,
of
enquanto
things to
se trata de
reduce
ODS número
inequality,
11,
when we
podemos
talk about
pensar
the
no
SDG
combate
11,
ao racismo
we can think
ambiental.
also
E para
about
isso eu gostaria de
fighting
compartilhar com vocês
environmental
um pequeno
racism.
conceito deste
So
tema,
I want to
na qual
share
o
the
cerne da
concept
luta por
or
um
the
mundo mais
definition.
equitativo, Instituto
Fighting for
Clarece
a better
posiciona
world, the
firmemente
Clarice
para
Institute
combater
positions
as
itself to
injustiças
fight against
socioambientais.
social, environmental
Reconhece-se que
injustice,
comunidades
recognizes that community
historicamente
has been
marginalizadas,
historically marginalized,
frequentemente por vetores
often
de
with
discriminação racial,
racial
socioeconômica
discrimination,
e territorial,
socioeconomical,
são
and territorial
desproporcionalmente
discrimination.
afetadas pelos
This has
flagelos da
been
degradação ambiental, da
affected by
poluição e dos riscos
environmental
climáticos.
degradation,
Para o
pollution, and climate
Instituto, a
risks. For
redução
this
das
institution,
desigualdades
the
neste
reduction of
contexto
inequalities
traduz-se na luta
is a
intransigente pela
fight
garantia de um ambiente
for the
saudável
guarantee
e
of a
seguro
healthy
para todos,
environment and
por uma
safe
justa
environment for everyone,
distributiva que
with
assegure
a
a
distribution
equidade na
that
partilha dos
assures
benefícios e
equity
ônus
when we share
ambientais. O
benefits
trabalho
and
foca no
the
fortalecimento da
environment.
capacidade
This
dessas comunidades de
strengthening
se
work
protegerem,
of these
de se
communities for them
adaptarem
to
e de
protect
serem
themselves, for them to
protagonistas das
adapt
decisões que
themselves,
afetam
and for
seus
being
territórios e
protagonists
seus
in the
modos de
decisions that
vida.
affect their
Isso
territories and
implica
their
em
ways of
assegurar
life.
medidas concretas
This
para
means to
reduzir a
assure concrete
vulnerabilidade
measures to reduce
socioambiental e
vulnerability
mitigando os impactos já
and
sentidos e
also the
esperados das
impacts that are
mudanças
already felt
climáticas,
and expected from
reafirmando
the
que o
climate
direito à
changes,
vida e à
to
saúde
reaffirm that the
é
right to life and health
inesperável
is
de um ambiente
inseparable
íntegro,
from an
equilibrado e
integral
justo.
environment,
É
balanced and
inseparável
fair.
de um ambiente íntegro,
You
equilibrado
cannot
e justo.
separate
A
this.
solidariedade se manifesta no
Solidarity
apoio
manifests
ativo à
itself in the
defesa
active
desses
support
direitos,
to
promovendo
defend
o
these rights,
desenvolvimento humano
promoting
que
human
respeita e
development that
integra a
respects
casa
and
comum
integrates the
conforme a
common
ecologia integral.
home according
Esse
to
conceito do
integral
racismo
ecology.
ambiental está relacionado ao ODS
This
número 11,
concept is
porque
related
as
to the
pessoas que
SDG
possuem uma
11.
melhor
Why?
condição
Because
financeira
people
possuem suas
that
casas
want
em
to
áreas mais
improve,
protegidas, áreas mais tranquilas.
some
E
people
as
have their
pessoas menos
houses in more
favorecidas
protected areas,
muitas
and those
vezes se
people that are
encontram em
less favored
situações
often
vulneráveis, em locais
find
vulneráveis,
themselves
às
in
margens de
vulnerable
rios,
situations in
nas
vulnerable places,
montanhas, em
on the
lugares onde podem
riverbanks
acontecer
and
deslizamentos, enchentes,
in the periphery
situações
areas that
essas que
flood.
afetam
This
a
situation
habitação e
affects
possam colocar em
housing.
risco a
So
moradia dessas
these
pessoas.
people
E
are
aí se
under
traz o
risk,
trabalho do
and
Instituto
this
Claré,
is where
promovendo
our
a
work comes
conscientização
in,
e ajudando,
promoting and
promovendo,
helping
articulando
the
meios para
government
fazer com que estas
to
pessoas
find
que se
means
encontram nesses
to
lugares
help these
vulneráveis
people that
tenham
are
consciência
living in
dessa
these
realidade
vulnerable
e possam
spaces, for them to
adequar
become
as
aware of the
moradias de
reality,
suas habitações em
and
lugares
so they're
mais
able to
seguros, em
adequate
lugares mais
their
protegidos, para
homes
que
and
possam
go to
viver
more
em
protective
lugares
areas
tranquilos, na qual
so that they
favoreçam
can
um ambiente
live in
acolhedor,
spaces
um
that
ambiente
are
digno para
welcoming
ser
and
vivido.
that are
Então,
dignified
outro ponto
to
que
live.
também está
Another
relacionado
point,
ao
which
ODS
also
número
is
11
related to
se
the
trata das
SDG 11, has to
catástrofes
do
climáticas.
with
E
the
no
climate
Brasil, este ano,
catastrophes. In
2026,
Brazil,
está
this year
sendo
of
alertado a
2026,
respeito do El Niño, que
we
poderá
have
acontecer em
warnings
várias
about
tragédias
El
climáticas,
Nino.
várias
We can have
catástrofes que estão
several
sendo anunciadas.
catastrophes and
E
climate
enquanto o
tragedies.
Instituto Claré
And
está sendo
while the
pensado em um
institution,
plano, um
we
projeto
think about
para
a plan or a
mapear
project
e
to
identificar
map
as pessoas que
and
fazem
identify
relação com o Instituto
people
Claré, que são
that
atendidas, que passam
have
pelas
a
unidades,
relationship with us
para
that
que
they may
possam
be
ser mapeadas
supported.
essas casas,
And
essas habitações,
so
e
we map
que assim
these
possam se
homes, these
proteger,
residences,
possam buscar
so that people
recursos
are
para
able to
fazer com que
protect themselves.
protejam as suas
And
habitações,
we
protejam as suas moradias
make an
diante
effort to
dessas
get
catástrofes
funds
que estão
so that
sendo
people can
anunciadas.
protect
São
themselves against
caminhos
these announced
trilhados
catastrophes.
para
These
promover a
are
redução das
paths
desigualdades.
to
E
promote
quando o
the
assunto
reduction
é
of inequalities.
redução das
And
desigualdades,
when we talk
a
about
habitação para
reducing
todos os seres
inequality
humanos é um
for
caminho
all
de
human
redução das
beings, this
desigualdades,
is the
porque é um
way to
ponto
go.
que deveria
It's a
igualar a
point
todo
that
ser humano,
should
seria esse. de que
make
todos
all human
possuíssem uma
beings
casa
equal,
digna,
that everyone should
acolhedora
have
para
a
viver e
house, a
assim
home
favorecer
to live
todos os
in,
outros ODS
favoring
que estão
all the other
presentes na
SDGs
Agenda
that are
2030
present
para fazer
in
com
the
que esse
agenda
mundo
of
seja
2030,
digno para ser vivido
so that
hoje e
we live
também
in
as
a
futuras
dignified
gerações.
world
Este é um
and
pouco do
also for
cenário, um
future
pouco das
generations.
atividades
This is a
realizadas
little bit of
enquanto
the
província,
scenario
enquanto
and
Igreja
of what we
Católica no
do
Brasil. Muito
as
obrigado a
a
todos pela
Catholic Church in
atenção.
Brazil.
Tenham
Thank
uma
you very much
ótima
for your
reunião.
attention, and I hope you have a wonderful meeting.
Much gratitude to Brother Joel and his preparation of that video for us, given his inability to join us here today. I was struck by both how his presentation expanded upon our conversation today on SDG 11 and also the commonalities that underscored his presentation and Father Prakash's. I appreciate that he expanded the conversation from just talking about homelessness or those experiencing homelessness to also talking about how do we construct welcoming communities for individuals who are not only unhoused, but individuals who are experiencing displacement due to climate disasters, which is an increasing concern and needs a response worldwide. And also how he tied in the conversation about what are some preventative measures that we might be able to put in place. Of course, we can try our best to construct welcoming communities to those who are displaced, but there's also a responsibility that we have to plan ahead, to, for example, make maps of climate vulnerable areas. How do we improve our preparedness to the impacts of climate change, so that the burden of creating welcoming spaces is not one that becomes untenable, but that it's also coupled with mitigation measures. And I'm curious if others were also struck by this, but something that really hit me was near the beginning of his presentation when Brother Joel talked about how the right to housing is a human right that is identified within Article 25 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And the part that particularly struck me about that was connecting that Universal Declaration of Human Rights with where we're at today with the SDGs. Between now and when we adopted that Declaration of Human Rights, we're looking at a span of approximately 80 years. And yet this SDG 11, this idea about how do we meet the needs of those who are unhoused, is still something that we're struggling to be able to find solutions for, durable solutions. And it's something that we continue to need to focus on. And I anticipate that even when we see the SDGs culminating in the deadline of 2030, I expect that this is still a concern that we're going to be working on for years to come. And I think we have a very special role to play as Catholic religious in this area, given our hundreds of years of history of providing direct services to communities who are experiencing homelessness. I was also struck by the commonality between both Brother Joel's presentation and Father Prakash's in the sense of being able to fulfill or achieve SDG 11 is something that requires solidarity, and it's an all of society approach that is needed. It's something where each of us is called to act and has something to offer, and it's something that cannot be achieved by one group or one person alone. Again, we can see how a country such as Brazil has passed some legislation or some formal words acknowledging the human right to housing and saying we need to do something about it. But those words on paper cannot be translated into action or implementation without buy-in from those who are most affected and those who are providing services and communities as a whole. The other piece that really came to the forefront for me was the image that both of our presenters today shared of the statue of the individual lying underneath a blanket on a bench. And I think something that we can all reflect a little bit upon is the fact that within this artistic depiction, we're not exactly sure who that person is. We're not exactly sure of gender or culture or age, where they're from, where they're going, what their hopes or dreams are. There's a sense of being able to see the possibility of each and every one of us being that person lying there. And I think, again, that underscores our fraternity, or the fact that we are all in community as brothers and sisters of Christ, and what affects one of us affects us all. And that's something that I think I'm going to carry with me for the rest of the day today and think about. And I encourage all of you as well. We don't know specifically who that individual is, and we don't know at what point we ourselves might need help or assistance. And I think that's why it's so important that all of us are doing the different types of service that that we are engaged in, because it's something in which we are all connected in this kingdom of God that we are trying to create here on earth. I would like to introduce our third and final speaker for today, Sister Rosemary Magarizano. She is a sister of the Religious Heart, or the Religious of the Sacred Heart of Mary from Zimbabwe. Sister Rosemary, I invite you to please take the floor, and please correct my pronunciation of your name if I did not get it correct. I want to make sure that we all know who you are.
I'm Rosemary Magarizano Kati. You pronounce it so well. So I'm here in Zimbabwe, in the southern of Africa. I'm going to talk about Zimbabwe's progress in Harare, in the city of Harare and Bulawayo especially. What we have done. Sustainable Development Goal number 11, as we all know, that it aims to make cities and human settlements inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. Zimbabwe recognizes the importance of achieving this goal and has taken significant steps towards meeting the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda. Although the country has developed sound policies and strategies to promote sustainable urban development, our economic challenges have sometimes limited the full implementation of these plans. Nevertheless, both the government and other stakeholders continue to work towards creating cleaner, safer, and more sustainable cities, particularly in Harare, which is the capital city, and Bulawayo. Next slide, please. One of Zimbabwe's key initiatives is the National Cleanup Day, which is observed by everybody on the first Friday of every month from 8 to 10 a.m. This government-led program encourages citizens, businesses, schools, churches, and other organizations to participate in cleaning their surroundings. The Environmental Management Agency, EMA, plays a leading role in promoting environmental protection through awareness campaigns, environmental monitoring, and enforcement of environmental laws. These efforts encourage responsible waste disposal and contribute to cleaner urban environments and healthy living for all. Next slide, please. Complementing government efforts, JCoR has tried to conscientize people about recycling. I live in a community school here at Sister Sarudzai. We separate the waste and put in different categories. When the city truck comes, it collects everything in one truck because we do not have a lot of trucks. They mix what we would have separated with the kids, and this defeats the whole purpose of sorting our waste in the first place. This discourages us. In Harare, one of the country's major achievements starting last year is the JCoR Waste to Energy project. This project has transformed the former Pomona dam site, it is a huge one, into a modern waste management facility that is processing approximately 1,000 tons of waste each day. In addition to improving waste management, the plant is designed to generate between 16 to 22 megawatts of electricity for the national grid. The project also introduces structured residential waste collection systems, helping to improve sanitation and reduce environmental pollution in the city. This is our JCoR Waste Energy project. We are so excited with it because, as I said before, it was a huge mountains and mountains of waste, but then the government, together with private sector, they came up with this, and we have a sorting plant there, and now we are generating, electricity actually from the waste that is being dumped there from the different suburbs. So it is a big achievement because before, the waste in the suburbs wasn't able to be collected. Or even when they collected, they were dumping it in wrong places. And so now we have this central place and we are able to recycle the waste into renewable energy. Thank you, Teresa. Next slide, please. So, collaboration between government agencies and private organizations has strengthened Zimbabwean efforts towards achieving SDG 11. For example, as I said before, JCoR has worked together with EMA, organizing workshops that promote waste recycling, reusing, and environmental conservation. Just a few months ago, a workshop was held with a private company. Sister Sarudzai will give us more details about this workshop. EMA, this environmental agency, it conducts regular enforcement and safety patrols within the Harare CBD, issuing fines to individuals who litter, transport operators who fail to provide bins, businesses that do not maintain clean premises. These measures, they are demonstrating, how Zimbabwe is committed to enforcing environmental policies that promote responsible urban management. About 20 years ago, our capital city, Harare, used to be called the Sunshine City. So we are saying with this effort of fulfilling the SDG 11, who knows, we might gain back our status. At community level, organizations such as JCoR, Bulawayo here in Harare, we continue to promote environmental stewardship through educational programs. Collaborators are encouraged to dispose litter properly by using designated bins labeled. We encourage people to plant trees during anniversaries or other significant events. For example, at our school here, we are going to celebrate centenary celebrations, and we have a line of trees that we'll be planting to mark the event. Such initiatives help build environmental awareness to our students, to the parents, to the community at large, and they encourage communities to take an active role in protecting their surroundings. I must say also, point out that despite these positive developments, Zimbabwe still faces several challenges in achieving SDG 11. We have rapid rural to urban migration that has contributed to growth of informal settlements, while limited access to affordable housing continues to place pressure on urban infrastructure. In addition, waste collection services remain inconsistent in some parts of Harare and Bulawayo. So in conclusion, I would say Zimbabwe's journey towards achieving sustainable development goal number 11, it is still ongoing, but meaningful progress has been made. Infrastructure developments, such as the Trabablas interchange, it is a big roundabout. In Harare, it was completed last year, demonstrates the country's commitment to modern, resilient urban development to ease the traffic flow. So together with growing environmental awareness, improved waste management systems, stronger partnership among government, private organizations, churches, and communities, these efforts bring Zimbabwe closer to the vision of inclusive, sustainable, and resilient cities for all. I just wanted to comment something, sorry to our interpreters, about the housing. It wasn't captured in the slides, that we have national housing strategies. The government at the moment, they aim to build about 100 modern affordable units, like what our friend from Toronto was saying. Not complicated one, but simple one, so that everybody would have a shelter. Again, we have the target of 2030 under the National Development Plans. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sister Rosemary, for sharing your depth of experience with SDG from Zimbabwe. I appreciate how, again, you expanded the conversation. We've heard today on the issue of homelessness, on the need for disaster preparedness, and then you expanded upon our examples of SDG 11 in action by highlighting in Zimbabwe waste management efforts that convert waste, even in some instances, to renewable energy. to recycling, to efforts to improving sanitation and reducing environmental pollution in cities. All of these are encapsulated in SDG 11, and I appreciate how you painted that broader picture for us in Zimbabwe. It was also exciting to hear you speak about JCoR's work in the region, specifically looking at examples of you shared with the private partnership with governments or with JCoR partnering with the Environmental Management Agency, JCoR participating with local schools to do environmental education sessions, really bringing communities in to take active roles in protecting their local environments and improving the living conditions within their own communities. Even mentioning some of the tree planting initiatives that you've done with schools as well. It's really fantastic to see the arc of JCoR from initial workshops and then learning about the SDGs and increasing our awareness about ways that all of us, even at a local level, can participate in implementation of the SDGs and then move that knowledge into direct action within your own community. So thank you so much for sharing that and for being with us here today, Rosemary. I also wanted to offer up a correction to something I said earlier and thank all of you for granting me grace because I may be one of the only people on this call that did not know this. But the statue that appeared in the images in 2 of our previous presentations, we do actually know who it is. The statue is called Homeless Jesus, and it was created by a Canadian artist. And we can tell that it's Jesus by the depiction of the marks of the crucifixion on his feet. So thank you for granting me grace. We all still have learning to do, myself included, as demonstrated today. But I think, again, it still underlines the main message of that statue, which is invoking compassion for all of us around the issue of those who are experiencing homelessness. Now, we are lucky today in that we actually have some extra time here for questions and comments and responses to engage with our presenters today and with one another, as I anticipate there are several participants on this call today that may even have their own experiences with SDG 11 work that they might want to share. So we welcome you to either raise your physical hand, turn your video on and raise your physical hand, or you can also use the raise hand button that appears on the bottom of your Zoom screen to raise your virtual hand so that we may call on you and hear from you. Or you can also enter your questions or your comments into the Zoom chat box to participate in the discussion. So I will now open up the floor for anybody who has questions for any of our speakers or reflections that they would like to share with the group. Please go ahead, Anne.
Thanks. Prakers, when you were speaking, you made reference to the fact that very recently that the numbers have dramatically increased related to homelessness. And I was wondering if you, and maybe you mentioned this and I somehow missed it, but do you know what has contributed to that dramatic increase?
Yes. As I mentioned that during the World Cup, they closed this big shelter which housed about 300 people. That was one of the points when things escalated. But also the whole housing policy takes a long time they're trying to build more houses, but it takes about 5 years by the time the governments kind of go through the rigmarole. So when we asked the mayor and his council, they kind of pushed the buck to the provincial government, and the provincial government then talks to the federal government, and so it goes on. It's just that they know what the problem is, they know what the solution. It's just that there is no political will to implement it.
Are they, do they actually go in and just clear out the encampments?
Yes, they were doing that during the COVID time. There were about 45 encampments just next to my house. But then somebody filed a case against them that is against human rights. People protested. So they were forcibly doing that. That's why the Waterloo case is kind of very important, where the judge declared that that is against the whole Charter of Rights.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Please go ahead, Rohan or Terrence. You're on mute.
Sorry, I have two Claretian seminarians here. They would like to make some comments on the presentations. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, Kati, and the presenters of today, Rosemary, Prakash, and Joel, if I pronounced your names correctly. I'm Fabian, and I really appreciate your approach to the 11th goal of the SDGs. I appreciate that. So one thing that really struck me, and it goes deep within me, is that there is no way we can talk about, you can't talk about us without us. And then the reality in our streets and in our cities as well, be it in Zimbabwe, be it in Toronto, be it in Brazil, that's also, it reflects also what happens in my back home country, maybe in Kenya as well. And all these approaches to the reality that is now eating up with our cities, with its population, be it traffic and all these environmental concerns, like now garbage collection and all this, really comes back to us again. It hits us. And then the following day, we find people in the streets exposed to harsh and hazardous weather, lack of like basic need, like other basic needs like food as well, and all these deteriorating and health affecting circumstances. And I really appreciate Prakash approach of in his presentation when the plan, like in Toronto, of demonstration, awakening the creating awareness. Okay, they know that the political class, they know their responsibility, but at times they pretend to be forgetting. So it's our responsibility as UN to be in constant enforcement of these practices, just to create awareness that we really talk about us and address our concerns. And I really appreciate all these presentations, because that's really exact thing that we need actually to do in this our platform as well. Thank you very much for allowing me this chance to contribute.
And hello everyone, nice to meet you all here. My name is Stephen and I come from China, and also really appreciate for your sharing here. Something I want to say is about to talk about the
SDGs.
Yeah, SDG, I see some dilemmas because I come from China, and as you know, something you have in your house, maybe there's the brand made in China. Because I as a Chinese guy, when I come from China, Donald Trump started a tariff war. A lot of Chinese people are suffering because we have a lot of products people are ready to sell to America. And Chinese people want America to use more resources so that Chinese people will get rich. And that is dilemma. some people want, like, this is kind of dilemma, like you want some people to spend money to buy your things, and you have to make the things and cannot be very good. The quality, if the quality lasts so long, means a lot of people still lose their job because they cannot continuously making the stuffs. And this is like something like some results will be like a lot of waste. And Sister Rosemary shared about like China also, they do the same. Like they use different box to receive different like trash. And later on when the truck comes, they put them together, throw in one to the truck. And that is like something happen, I think not only in Zimbabwe, I think many places are happening. But the people still want to make more stuff so that they can sell. And this will be like really something like I also can think and reflect on it, like how to make like people change their mind. It is not about like you spend money buy what I produce, I get rich, and you use what I it is like a circle, like no result. Yeah, I think that is something like from my country and my background, and I want to say like this kind of dilemma. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comments. And I think, especially Stephen, the dilemmas that you're articulating are incredibly important. I think they speak to how interconnected all of these goals are and how also interconnected our response needs to be as a global community. As mentioned earlier, we've seen that, for example, homelessness or having a home is identified as a human right back in 1948. And yet here we are today, still working on making that a reality for all of humanity. And I don't think it's because there's not will to solve the problem. I think it's because it's so multifaceted. There aren't, like you articulated, there's not black and white, very quick answers and solutions to these, which is why even going back to where we started with Father Prakash today, articulating this idea that there should be no decisions about us without us. We need active participation of those who are being affected by our decisions throughout the entire decision-making process. And so I don't think it's a matter of, well, we adopted the Universal Declaration of Human Rights back in 1948. We still haven't brought this one to fruition. It's a failure. I think actually we are getting closer and closer to finding a solution. We are making progress, but we have to recalibrate as we go along the way. And I don't think we have figured out a way to harness the power of that group participation that's really required to make these dreams of ours a reality, to as my colleague Teresa will often cite, the SDGs are very much in alignment with our Catholic spirituality, the idea that we are called to create this kingdom or city of God here on earth. And in a sense, the SDGs can be sort of like a secular language or roadmap to achieving that city of God here on earth. And so although we are making progress, like you articulated, these are very, very complicated issues that take multifaceted responses. And I think we need to grant ourselves some grace in understanding that we are going to need to recalibrate our interventions and our implementation as we learn more and hopefully improve upon the solutions that we're creating. Are there any other questions or perhaps reflections that anyone would like to share with the group?
Just by way of a side comment, you were talking about the homeless Jesus statue. It's made by a Canadian sculptor called Timothy Skalmach, and you can see many of his statues. Also, you can see during Pope Francis' time, there's a big one in Piazza San Pietro, about the migrants. But the interesting thing why I'm bringing this up is that when this statue was made, the cathedral did not want to have it placed in front of the cathedral because they felt a little bit, I don't know, what should I say, shy or ashamed of putting homeless Jesus there. So the Jesuit college, actually it is in front of the Jesuit college. They are the first ones who kind of adapted it and put it right in front of their college. And it's still there today. And then other people kind of in the Vatican and other places kind of started using the same statue in different places. So thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Father Prakash. Helga or Ferdinand or both?
It's Ferdinand this time. It's to the very good lecture of Sister Rosemary. It's just a small comment on this with waste and mixed waste. We had the same issue some years ago in Norway, that people sorted waste as good as they were able to do it, and then it was mixed in the same car. Of course, they said there were different chambers and things like that, but in a way, some of the work was destroyed. But at a certain time, the municipality realized that sorted waste is more valuable than mixed waste. So you get more money, and then it's why then when they ended to mix it up and even invested in expensive sorting machines. So there's a way to get out of the problem by using capitalism, which is a nice tool this time. Thank you.
Lower hand. Yeah, you should take.
Please go ahead, Catherine.
Hey, good morning. I'm Kathy Mignot. I am a religious of the Sacred Heart of Mary. I live here in Los Angeles. And I just wanted to say how much I appreciated the 3 presentations. And Father Prakash, that was very encouraging to me to see the kind of commitment the Canadian government has made to resolve the issue of homelessness or the unhoused. And I think this is a way we in the United States could learn from you as our neighbor, since there seems to be difficulties in our relationships right now. Secondly, to Brother Joel, I know he's not on this call, but I did live in Brazil for a while. So anybody from Brazil, I always take to heart. And I've always been very impressed by the church and the campaign for fraternity, which for me, fraternity is more like solidarity. And I appreciate the scriptural background of talking about housing. The word moradia is stronger than I think housing for us. It's a dwelling of life, a dwelling where God exists. And I thought that was really particularly beautiful. And the final thing for Rosemary, who's one of my sisters, so I'm very proud that she is a present and a reporter, a presenter at this gathering. And I know that our sisters have always found recycling a great challenge, as has been mentioned. And so I'm happy to hear that there is progress in this area of recycling. But also, and another lesson to learn is how this waste management, this waste can be transformed into energy. So for me, that is really a very good learning for all of us, and to use our technology for alternative sources of energy. So I'm really very thankful for these 3 presentations, and it gives me pride to know the work that the church is doing in relation to this agenda of the United Nations. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Kathy. And I love how you're tying back in there the energy, the SDG 7 that we spoke about earlier this week. Again, the interconnection of all of these goals is absolutely astounding. I can see Margaret Murilli, you also have your hand up.
Yes, yeah. I just want to thank all those who have presented today, and I would like to make a comment, and more especially on inclusivity. Yes, last 2 weeks attending the high-level political forum, I attended a session on SDG 11, and it was really touching. So I was touched by the fact that the cities have to adapting the development according to that inclusivity value. That like the women were like, sometimes the cities are not taking their needs in place, and also we had the youth who were like, we need cities to consider us when they are, or the governments when they are planning for the cities, so that the needs of the youth, the needs of people with special needs, those needs of like women who need to do business and so on, and values of different cultural needs should also be put into consideration. So I was touched by the fact that we are talking about inclusivity, which just does not just consider that everybody should get a room or what, but the needs of those people who are going to live in that city is very, very important. Thank you.
Are there any more questions, comments, reflections? Please go ahead, Helga.
This time is Helga who's speaking. I want to comment on Father Prakash's presentation. Thanks so much for that one, and also for the other two, of course. But I was reminded when hearing him that I heard about this kick out of homeless people from this big shelter in combination with this World Cup, or Football World Cup. And it was commented on in our news that evening. And I thought, yes, the poor people are always kicked off when the rich people need something. So I was also reminded about the situation here in Norway, because we have also homeless people, and many of them are addicted to narcotics. And especially in Oslo, the capital, and there they have built a kind of shelters for those who want to take their narcotics, so that they can do that in safe places where they are also safe when they take an overdose. I think this is a good measure, but I really would hope for a kind of action which Father Prakash leads or is a member of. So I'm really thinking about what can we do for those homeless people that their conditions can improve. So I think I want to see if there are already some engaged people and join them if possible. So thanks, Father Prakash, for your encouragement and inspiration. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Helga, for your comments and appreciation. There are different ways, people are involved in trying to do something for the homeless. I just wanted to refer you to one of my friends. He's a permanent deacon, a married deacon, and he has been walking on the streets. He calls it a ministry of presence. His name is Deacon Richard Robert King Horn, and he calls his group. That's how I came to know the people on the street, called Friends of the Street. But basically, he writes a column each month called Church on the Streets because he feels the church is not there. So he just goes about walking each week on Thursday, especially without any money, without anything. Like he just goes and he says, if anybody wants to talk on the streets, I'm available. And I think it's a very special ministry that he does, but it's quite inspiring. So that's something that you could begin with. And I have a copy of his book here. I don't know if you can see it well. It's called, I don't know how to do that. Maybe I think my camera is blurred, so I will take out the blur. Or I can send you, yeah, it's possible. That's the book. Can you see it now? The
Yes,
Church
we
on the
can.
Street.
Yes, I can make a picture. One moment.
Yeah.
So
And this is the second volume that he's written, but basically he's just narrating some of the stories that he's met on the streets. He changes the names, of course, because of privacy, but some very interesting stories that he has. And the other thing that we've tried to do, because everybody cannot be involved in coming for street marches and walks. So what we did is we have what we call a program called Retreat on the Streets. So where we are trying to encourage young people, students, and also sometimes adults to come to our church basement, which is very close to the heart of the city, downtown, and where you can actually, if you walk across, not far from my church, you can see people who are being on drugs and homeless and all kinds of situations. So what we do is we ask people to come over to our place, and we give them a orientation, a little pep talk about why they are here, and then we send them out on the streets. We ask them to bring some kind of care bags, which they already make. If they are from the school, the teachers help them to make them, and then in small groups we send them out onto the streets in different places. And it's a way of trying to get in touch with the poor Lazarus on the street. And when they come back, we kind of have a process through which they kind of ask questions and talk to begin at least to see that the people on the streets are not, they are just like us, that they are people with made in the image and likeness of God. So that's the message that we do in very small ways. And the third thing that I suggest is that because I live at this kind of crossroad, we started a ministry of presence by on every Saturday. And from before COVID, about 7.5 years ago, we started a group called Ripples of Kindness, which is basically an interfaith group where different communities from the Sikh community, the Muslim community, the Buddhist community, and also from the different church parishes, they come each week with prepared food, and we distribute it out into a hall where the people who are from the streets can come in and have a meal with us. And in that way, we are able to actually interact and come in touch with people, know their stories. Basically, the food is not important. My friend Robert often tells me that they know where to get food, they know where to get clothes. But more than that, what they need is a listening ear. They need friendship. So I tell my volunteers, I have over 30 volunteers, that if you can befriend one homeless person, I think the purpose of Ripples of Kindness is done for me.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Father Prakash. That sounds wonderful.
Thank you, Father Prakash. I am really amazed by the scope of activities and awareness raising and advocacy that you and your colleagues have in response to this SDG 11. And I also want to draw the attention of our participants to the chat box in case they did not see it earlier. We did share the report from your presentation on SDG 11 on homelessness in Canada. So I just put that link in the chat box again. For those of you who may be interested in reading it, I just wanted to make sure that our participants knew that it was there and accessible if they are interested.
You know, I'm talking too much, but I have this. I was hoping that somebody will ask me this question, but since nobody's asking, I want to ask you and to ask your advice and help. You know, so what comes next? We've had demonstrations, we've had signature campaigns, and we find still that sometimes our voice is like heard by deaf ears. And what we are planning next is we will have elections, local elections in October. So we're trying to see if we can get the councillors to commit themselves. If they say that homelessness is a human right, it's an emergency, then they should commit themselves to it. And then we can ask them when they are elected to keep that commitment. But if you have any other ideas, please share with us. I was going to ask you, like, how can we go forward besides these different activities?
I think that's a fantastic question, especially to bring a spotlight on some of what JCoR is here for, which is to connect members of our global community who are working on similar issues. I know when it comes to homelessness, there are a few of our members who are representatives of their congregations here at the UN that have worked in order to get what I believe are now 2 different UN resolutions on homelessness. So that adds to sort of the language and the commitments that governments have made that we can share with our own government officials and ask them to live up to. And Prakash, we also could look at connecting you with some of our members here that are working on that issue. Many participate in a civil society organization here at the UN called the NGO Working Group to End Homelessness. And I wonder if through those connections, some of those members who work more closely on this topic might be able to share some insights from their experience, something that they've done that maybe has worked at the local level with their government officials that maybe can help inform how you recalibrate your response or some new initiatives that you can start. So we can certainly try and put you in contact with that group. But of course, I open up the floor to anybody else on our call here today who has something to share, some insights, some experience, or some connections for Prakash.
I'm a member of that group, but somehow I don't seem to get the emails. Please remind them that put me on their email.
I know a couple members, so I will try and send a message to them today to see if we can get you added to that list. Just so you know, this July, August time of year, generally the NGO working groups at the UN are kind of on vacation in alignment with the schedule of the UN in general. So you might not hear until September, but we should be able to get you reconnected with that group.
Thank you. Thank you.
Please go ahead, Teresa.
Thank you. I just want to add this is kind of a broad thought that maybe in some way responds to your question, Prakash, but also maybe presents an invitation to all of us who are gathered here as this community to remember or perhaps claim the important role of spiritual leadership in social and economic and environmental transformation. And those who have been part of JCoR programs many times have probably heard some version of this message before, but I continue as we do our work at the level of the United Nations, I always need to remind myself of the important spiritual aspects of the work we are doing here, which is at its root or at its core to change hearts and minds, to remind ourselves what is really essential and important and what genuine wealth is. And I bring all of that up in one way in response to the comment earlier from, I think it was Stephen, the Claretian seminarian, speaking of, we find ourselves in this challenging, maybe a vicious circle of, economic well-being dependent on creating waste. And I think in any economy, there are many jobs that are created for the sake of creating jobs and to keep people busy and to create wages. And at the same time, there is a lot of work that needs to be done for which we don't seem to have the resources for things that genuinely need to be done, for serving the needs of people who are without housing, or for providing proper waste management services in cities and small towns. And so it's somehow, I think our challenges are largely a matter of priorities and where we are able to get political will and momentum to create changes, to do the work that needs to be done, rather than just generating work for the sake of work or for the sake of income. And when it comes to setting priorities, I really think that a spiritual community has maybe a central role to play, to continue to open hearts, open minds, to bring practical matters into our traditional ministry spaces like parishes and schools and health centers. That these can be places for education on so many levels, because as I think those here recognize, that health and education and environment and spiritual well-being are all interconnected. And that makes all of these ministry spaces appropriate spaces for awareness raising and for bringing more hearts and minds into our causes. And that will never be a bad thing in terms of trying to find new energy and new momentum to make changes, even where we have found closed doors or closed ears or closed minds in the past. So a kind of a general comment about contributing to many different kinds of causes. But I just wanted to put that forward, especially in this community, to remind you all of the power that you have in your communities and the tremendous access to people who can be mobilized that you have. And these are such important and powerful positions and roles.
And perhaps to follow along with that introduction of the reminder of the spiritual element, since we have just a few extra minutes here today, I was thinking that perhaps we could wrap up with a short prayer on today's theme of SDG 11. So you should see in just a moment, we will share the prayer on your screen. We would love one volunteer per slide to help guide us through the prayer together today.
This we know. We do not weave the web of life, but rather we are woven into the beloved earth community. Earth and her dwelling place our goals, and we are called to make them inclusive and supportive to all.
Esto lo sabemos. Todas las personas tienen derecho a un medio ambiente limpio y saludable.
All people have the right to a
La
clean and
tierra y sus
healthy environment.
moradas pertenecen a
And her
Dios,
dwellings are
por lo que
God's.
debemos conservarlas como
So
espacios
we ought
sagrados.
to maintain them as sacred spaces.
This we know, whatever befalls the cities of earth, befalls all who dwell there. Earth and her dwelling places are God's. So we are called to make them safe, resilient, and sustainable.
We give you thanks, O God, for being present with us where we dwell.
You call us together in your love to be one family. May this inspire us out of patterns of coexistence into celebrations of community.
Que hagamos intencionadamente que las ciudades
May we
y los
intentionally
asentamientos
make
humanos
cities and
sean
human settlements
inclusivos,
inclusive,
seguros,
safe,
resilientes y
resilient,
sostenibles,
and sustainable,
utilizando nuestros espacios
using our
vitales
living
como
spaces
herramienta para
as a
promover
tool to
tu promesa de
promote your
pertenencia.
promise of belonging.
Give us the wisdom to plan for safe and sustainable cities. Make us rich in community builders and generous neighbors.
Inspira as pessoas de fé a procurarem o bem-estar das cidades onde vivem e a procurarem a tua paz e a tua presença nessas cidades. Amém.
Amen.
Thanks again to everyone for joining us today. I also want to thank each of our speakers, Sister Rosemary, Father Prakash, and Brother Joel. Thank you so much for sharing your experience and for all the time and wisdom that you put into your presentations for us today. Thank you to those also a little bit more behind the scenes, to our interpreters who make comprehension in this diverse community possible. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And also thank you to Teresa, who has been helping us share the presentations today and all of the beautiful graphics. We will be gathering at the same time again tomorrow for the final session of JCoR's 2026 SDG Lab series, which will focus on SDG 17, Partnerships for the Goals, revitalizing global partnerships for sustainable development. I wish you all a wonderful rest of your day or night, and I hope to see some of you tomorrow. Thank you.